Hi guys, today we're going to look at how to find lowest common multiples between two numbers. So I'm going to show you guys two different methods. So I'm going to name them method 1 and method 2. Let's start with the method 1. So I'm going to pick two numbers, 120 and say 150. Okay. So the first method I'm going to use is the most popular one, which is called prime factor tree method. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use prime factor trees first to break these two numbers down. Just to remind you guys, a prime factor tree is when we start breaking this number down using different numbers. For example, first 120 you have to express as multiple of two numbers. So for example, I'm going to pick 2 times 60. There are different ways of breaking it down as well. You can do 3 times 40, or you could do 4 times 30. There are different ways, but I'm going to stick with 2 times 60. Once you split them into two numbers multiplied together, then what you have to do is we have to circle any numbers that are prime. So once again, a prime number is the number that can only be divided by 1 and by itself. So for example, in this case, 2 can only be divided by 1 and by itself. So that means 2 is a prime, we can circle it. So the other number that we couldn't circle, we need to break it down even further. So if I want to break 60 down, I'm going to choose 2 times 30. There are different ways once again, but I'm going to choose 2 times 30. And 2 is a prime, I'm going to circle that. And 30, that can be broken down again. 2 times 15, I'm going to circle 2 since it's a prime. But 15, I need to break it further. So 15, I could break it down as 3 times 5. Now, 3 is a prime number and 5 is also a prime number, so we can circle them both, and I'm done because I've circled all the branches now. The next number I'm going to start with is 150. I'm going to start breaking it down as 2 times 75. 2 is the prime, I'm going to circle, and here I'm going to split this as 3 times 25, and 3 is the prime, so I'm going to circle it. 25, I need to split it further, and I'm going to write down 5 times 5, and 5 is a prime, so I've circled both of them. All of the necessary branches are circled, so I'm done. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a Venn diagram, and I'm going to name my circle as first 120, that belongs to any factors that belongs to 120, and for the next one, any factors that belongs to 150. So if you remember, when we try to fill in the Venn diagram, it's always easy to start with the middle ones, the common ones. So let's do that here. So for both of these numbers, the common numbers, for example, 2 is a common here, so I'm going to put that there. So 2 is a common number that goes in the middle, and I can see another 3 pair there, so 3 is a common number, so that goes in the middle, and I can see another 5 there, so 5 is a common number, so that goes in the middle. So I've filled in the common ones. Now I need to fill in the rest. So if I go back to the 120 number, I have filled in so far 3 numbers, 2, 3 and 5, that already went in the middle, but I still have these two to fill in, so those needs to go on the other side of the circle, and I'm going to fill this in here, 2 and 2. And if I come back to 150, the common ones that we've already selected, 2, 3, 5, but I still got a 5 remaining, so that needs to go on the other side. Therefore I'm going to write this down here. So your lowest common multiple for these numbers are everything that you've got inside the Venn diagram multiplied together. That's 2 times another 2 times 3 times 5 times 5. So altogether that should give you 600. So that's your answer. So that's your method 1 done. So now I'm going to show you guys the method 2. The method 2 is called the ladder method. This method is not very popular, but I find this very effective. Once you got your head round, I think this method is a bit easier than the first one and quicker. At the end of the day, it's for you guys to decide, it's up to you. But I personally prefer the method 2. Okay, so what we have to do for this method is we need to divide the numbers using the smallest prime numbers possible. So 120 and 150. What is the smallest prime number that could divide any of these numbers? It doesn't have to divide both of them, but any of the number. I would say 2 can divide both of them. So if I divide 120 by 2, I will get 60. And if I divide 150 by 2, I will get 75. Now I need to carry this on. So again, as I've told you earlier, it doesn't have to be divided by both. 2 doesn't have to divide both of them. As long as it can divide one of them, you're done. So here, 60 and 70, you can clearly see 2 can divide 60. So you have to divide 60 by 2. That would give you 30. But 75, we can't do anything with that because 2 cannot divide 75. So we leave it alone. And the next step again, 30, we can divide 30 by 2. That would give you 15 and 75 still remains. And we've now got 15 and 75. 2 is no longer useful because 2 cannot divide any of these numbers. So we're going to start with the next smallest prime number, which is going to be 3. So let's see if we can divide by 3. Yes, 15 can be divided by 3. That goes 5 times, and this one is going to be 25. Now 3 is no longer available because 3 cannot divide any of these numbers. The next number we have to try is 5. 5 goes into 5 ones, 5 goes into 25, 5. We still need to carry this on because we still have a 5 that can be divided by 5. So at the end we will end up with 1 and 1. So that shows us this is the end because that shows us there's no other way to divide any further. So now the lowest common multiple is every single number we use there multiplied together. So let's multiply them together. 2 times 2 times 2 times 3 times 5 times 5, which is exactly the same expression as we got here. So it's definitely going to produce us the same result, which is 600. So it's up to you guys to decide, but here you go. You've got 2 different methods that you can use to find the answer for this kind of questions. Thank you so much for watching, and we will see you in the next video.